All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Coach's Office. I'm your host Dan Murphy, along with my co-host Brian Barnes, and we're on here a little bit, a few minutes later than we intended. But Brian, you got a lot going on, a pretty hectic day. Why don't you update the people on what's up?
You're telling me, Dan. It's a busy time of year. My family and I just moved, and so we finalized that yesterday, and there's some craziness there. But yeah, and I also transitioned to a new position, an athletic director now at Bishop Foley, and from coaching at Waterford Kettering. So there's a lot of variables to what happened and why that happened. But today is my first day as an athletic director, and I'm just trying to get up to speed, and so dealing with some sporting events at night, but that's fun, right? And
Yeah,
working with kids and coaches is always good. And so now we get to have the opportunity, though, to have an awesome conversation, which I did not think we would have the last
no,
time we talked.
no,
Oh,
no. So 2 weeks ago, I don't even think this was in our mind that we could be doing a show like this. But as we sit, the Tigers are amidst one of the worst collapse, if not the biggest collapse in the history, not just in the Detroit sports, not the Detroit Tigers, in the history of Major League Baseball. If this comes to fruition and the Tigers do end up blowing this whole thing, it's one of the worst moments in Detroit sports history. I don't think that's hyperbole. I don't think it's overstating it. This is an absolute nightmare right now, Brian.
no, and when you had the best record in baseball for so long, and to see guys, it's funny. Like they're a streaky team, obviously, right? They've gone on long win streaks and they've gone on long losing streaks, but this is similar to that, that period right before the All-Star break where everybody just started slumping and there was no good facet of the team, hitting, pitching, defense, and I just kind of feel like that. And we're going to dive more into it, but I didn't see it coming, and especially it's not like they weren't in this situation before. So what I mean is this time a year ago, they were playing for their playoff lives, and they were in pressure situations for a long time, just like they are now. But maybe it's different because they are playing from ahead, instead of trying to play catch up and like, hey, no matter what, nobody saw this coming. But wow, not hyperbole. No question, definitely in my lifetime, and again, maybe ever the worst collapse in baseball history.
And what's so crazy about it is they were 0.02% chance of making the playoffs last year when they made the run. It was one of the most amazing runs I've ever seen. And now it's the complete opposite 1 year later. It's you can't even you couldn't even write that as a script. If you write that in a movie, they say it's
No,
too unbelievable. It would never happen. But it's
it
happening.
it is, and when the last time we talked, from my perspective, I talked about how baseball has evolved and changed, right? And so you don't have as many 300 hitters, you don't have as many guys hitting base hits. You have a lot of guys who are concerned with swing angle or launch angle and all that stuff, and OPS and all that other stuff. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, no, people are being too critical of some of our guys. That's just the way baseball is right now. But you know what? Leaving those opportunities, especially yesterday and this weekend, and really the last month, with runners in scoring position, not getting guys in or
Yeah.
moving runners. And when you don't win games and when you go through streaks like this, those things get magnified. And and now they're at that point in the season where you can't say, "Oh, we've got September to look forward to," right? Or we've got the second half of the season to look forward to. Now it's, figure it out or you're done.
Yeah. There's 1 week left. And the fortunate thing is, I'm going to put this up right now. Is you can see with the standings right now. I mean, the Tigers are still. I mean, it's hard to believe with the nightmare that we're living through right now, but they still do have a 1 game lead in the division. Okay, they still control their own destiny. If you kind of look at it as a glass half full situation, like you'd rather control your own destiny than not. Um, but there's obviously a lot of teams right on their heels, not only Cleveland for the division, but if let's say Cleveland were to overtake the Tigers for the division, whether it be within this series or by the end of this week, the Tigers would be competing with basically the Red Sox and the Astros. Let me take this off here. The Red Sox and the Astros to try to get one of those final one of those final wild card spots. The Yankees are pretty secure with that top wild card, but if you see the teams listed here, one of these teams is going to miss the playoffs. and it's most likely going to be one of either the Tigers, the Guardians, the Red Sox, or the Astros. You kind of look at things the way they kind of break out. The Tigers do have a tiebreaker over the Astros. If it were to come to that, they have the same record. They currently have the tiebreaker over the Red Sox, but they're going to play them head to head, the final series of the year. So, I mean, you can kind of break things down, but the way I kind of look at it right now, Brian, it's kind of like the playoffs start tomorrow night. You know, you need to win it. You got a 3-game series with Cleveland. You need to take 2 out of 3, and then you go into Cleveland, or you go into Boston. And to me, it's another 3-game series. Is you got to win 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the playoffs have started now, and you got 2 3-game series ahead of you.
Well, I like one of my favorite parts of baseball, and this is the geeky fan in me, is looking at magic numbers late in the year, right? And so if the Tigers' magic number right now is 6, which is basically a combination of Tigers wins and Guardians losses, right? When that gets to 0, the Tigers win the division. Okay. Well, it's funny right now it's 6. If the Tigers would have won 1 game against Atlanta and 1 game against Cleveland, the magic number is 3, which is just wild that literally just don't get swept on the final homestand of the year by either team, and you're in great shape to win the division and not have to worry about any of that stuff that we're even talking about, which is mind-boggling to me, unfathomable. And again, they've got Scooble going in this series, but it's still it's everything, and it's clutch hitting. It's hitting when it matters. And I remember thinking about that too. And I don't know if we touched on it last time we talked, when it comes to the Tigers and where they were, like, Torkelson, his batting average is around 240, and Riley Green is not high either. Right. And guys like, coming back to the mean a little bit, right. Water fine at its level. But I remember in my mind thinking, well, last year they had a lot of big hits when it mattered. Think about Andy Ibanez pinch hitting, right. In the playoffs against the Astros, or I think of Parker Meadows, the grand slam against San Diego, in the 9th inning, and they just haven't had those clutch hits. And the crazy thing about baseball is I remember Jim Leland said this, like, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. And Cleveland was hot, and Atlanta was hot, and the Tigers definitely were not. And so things can flip really quick. And maybe this is the optimistic fan in me that's thinking, like, okay, like, you're right, they've got a 1-game lead. If you would have said to anybody, hey, the Tigers have a 1-game lead going in the final week of the season, let's have at it. Let's have some fun, but it's just the way it happened. It wasn't like a back and forth division. I mean, Cleveland's closer is done for the year because the dude was gambling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, when Clase went out, I thought it was over. I thought there was no way Cleveland could get back into this. Not a chance.
I didn't think Cleveland was the team to make it interesting.
No, I thought it would be the Royals.
So did I.
Yep, they never could really get it going.
But like, and this is crazy because you don't think this as much. Like, when you think of other sports, you think of guys that can take over a game, right? In basketball, like, hey, who has that guy that can take over games? And LeBron or Michael Jordan back in the day. Football, okay, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, go win us the game. Hockey to a degree, right? You think about old school Wayne Gretzky, right? Back in the day, superstars take over games. And if you want to call the Tigers, I don't even think they're superstars, but the Tigers' main players, they're not taking over anything. Where, like, Jose Ramirez is obviously, like, that dude's gonna be a Hall of Famer. Like, you're right, he is carrying the Guardians, and look at what's going on around the league, and superstar players are carrying their teams toward the end of the year. And right now, the Tigers aren't getting that, and that's
the thing, because your superstar is your ace pitcher. The problem is, it's not the 70s, 80s, 90s. He's not going to go nine innings. No. He's going to go 6 or 7, and you're going to depend on your bullpen. And he's probably not going to pitch on 3 days rest. We'll see. No. He's never done it before, and even if he does do it, it's And I'm thinking like playoffs. Obviously, we're thinking of just the 6-game season right now. But just in general, like, he's only going to pitch every 5 days. So you need a hitter to be a guy that you can put the team on his back, and we really don't have that guy. And like you said, the Cleveland does, even with their minimal payroll, they have a guy in Jose Ramirez, and then they have maybe the best leadoff hitter in all of baseball.
Awesome.
And Stephen Kwan, just the perfect leadoff hitter, almost never strikes out, makes contact constantly. If he gets on base, he wreaks havoc, and he's a Gold Glove defender, makes home run saving plays. double saving plays all the time. He's the ultimate leadoff hitter, and the
You know,
Tigers don't have that either.
no, and take away the fact that it's the Tigers' biggest threat right now. Like that team is fun to watch. Cleveland is fun to watch. Like you just mentioned, like those players they're fun to watch. When they're up to bat, it's like, all right, this is going to be a good at bat. They're going to do something, and that is fun to watch, and it's frustrating. But you mentioned Skubal being the Tigers' best player, and we can talk about this later if you want, but it's dangerous when you want to give a pitcher that much money, right? When he only pitches every 5 days. And that's always the argument when pitchers are up for a possible most valuable player debate. It's like, okay, they are, but they still only pitch once every 5 days. And of course, I'm not downplaying Skubal at all, right? But right now, to your point, if he doesn't go 9 innings of shutout ball, you wonder, are the Tigers going to scrape a run or two across the plate, And then
Even if they do, even if
And he-
they go into the late innings, seventh, eighth, ninth inning with the lead, who do you feel confident in to shut the game down from the bullpen right now?
Nobody.
I mean, before it
Nobody.
used to be early in the season when they got off to the red hot start and they were the number one team in baseball. It was Vest and Canely were lights out. Then Canely fell off a cliff. He started to come back a little bit, but still not enough that you really trust him in a real high relevant situation where the season's on the line. And Vest, the wheels have completely fallen off with Vest. Like you can't trust him at all. The biggest game of the season to me that was blown was when Kerry Carpenter hit that game tying home run on Tuesday against Cleveland. That's the first game of the series.
Yep.
And Carpenter hit that game tying home run. They go into the extra innings and you got Vest coming out. You think, oh man, I know you're not a big momentum guy, Brian, but man, I was at that game that night and you could just feel the energy in the stadium. And you thought, this is the moment. This is where they're going to put the dagger in and they're going to finish Cleveland. And then Vest comes out and boom, 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 boom. Just, extra base hit after extra base hit. And all of a sudden they're down 4. Yeah. And just like that, it's like, holy cow.
So which is why, like, I'm not a big momentum guy, at least in baseball. I mean, I'm not. Like, typically there's an emotion play to it, but baseball's the one sport where, like, if you worry or can't handle that emotion, right, it does you no good, because emotion doesn't help when a guy is throwing 95 with movement. You know what I mean? Like when you're playing a physical sport like football, or to a degree like basketball, like, okay, like that feeling of like, holy heck, the crowd's loud, man, I'm going to drive this guy into the ground. All right, there's some truth to that. But baseball definitely is not like that. But you're right. I think that was the biggest game of the year as well.
But you're right. Just to go back on the momentum point, one quote that we always loved from Jim Leland was, momentum is only as good as the next day starting pitcher. Well, in some cases it's in game. And momentum is only as good as the next pitcher that's coming to the mound.
Well, to that point, you talked about the bullpen. Like, bullpen guys are in the bullpen for a reason, right? Because they're not good enough to be starting pitchers. Okay, so they're going to be flawed. Okay, but that being said, I was thinking going into the playoffs. I was definitely thinking, and we talked about this, it was going to be Skubal and it was going to be pitching chaos, because Flaherty isn't pitching as good as last year. Reese Olson is out for the year, right? And you're
Mize has never pitched in a playoff game.
Mize hasn't pitched in a playoff game. Charlie Morton was Charlie Morton. This is before he got DFA'd. And my thought was, okay, there's going to be pitching chaos. But then the other thing I thought was, like, with that, maybe you can put Flaherty into the bullpen for a little bit, right? Only have him be a part of that pitching chaos. Maybe get him out of his funk and just say, hey, you're only going 1 or 2 or 3 innings. Like, give us your all, right? And maybe that helps, because in the playoffs, it's all about matchups and the games are a lot shorter, right? Because you get into that bullpen and you feel better. But and maybe that's still the case if the Tigers get there, But right now,
I would say no, because I mean it's not like it was last year. They could do the pitching chaos because everybody that they brought in that bullpen was hot. Like everybody was pitching well, and everybody was healthy. And eventually it ran its course. The final game 4 and game 5 against Cleveland.
Yeah.
Really more specifically that game 4, because they had that 1-run lead late and then Holton let it go. But
the heart, let's be honest, like, and I mentioned this earlier, and this probably isn't fair to what they've done up until this point, right? And we can talk about how I think, and we both think, that this Tigers team is probably ahead of where Scott Harris and the Brain Trust think they would be, or they should be, right? They're probably a little bit ahead. Oh shoot, Dan, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I can pick up right
Yeah,
where you're
yeah,
kind of
because
going with that with the Scott
yeah,
Harris thing because
yeah.
I think they are well ahead of schedule, and that's something I want to get
Mm.
into now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, before that, here's what
uh,
here before that. Like, if you look position by position on the Tigers, other than Tarek Skubal, where do they have a guy that you have no doubt in your mind he is top 10 at his position?
I mean, there's just nobody. I mean, the
They're
only guy I would say is if when he's healthy and
the
has the
leading.
potential to be would be Parker Meadows, but
I agree,
he's never
potentially,
healthy.
but
He's never
he's not
healthy.
healthy. It's not the guy that leads the American League in strikeouts and doesn't care about it. It's not your first baseman who is one of my favorite players, but I still struggle with like God, like he doesn't put the ball in play enough. So that's my thing is like, okay, so I don't want to bag on what they've done for the last year and a half, but other than the number one starting pitcher, where else do they have a top 10 guy? I don't think they do.
And that's what I want to get into is with Scott Harris because everybody is yelling for his head right now. And I understand it. I understand the anger. I was as angry as anybody at the deadline. They didn't go out and do more. But when that happened and he didn't get out more guys and he tried to just do this quantity over quality thing and just try to get a bunch of garbage pitchers and throw them to Federer and say, hey, Federer, can you make lemonade out of lemons here? And he couldn't because these guys were terrible. And that's why you were able to get them for nothing. Because I don't think Harris wanted to give up any prospects because the guys that are in low A, high A, double A, all those teams are winning championships right now. Erie's on the Lakeland already won a championship. West Michigan has won a championship, and Erie is one game away from winning a championship. Those are all Scott Harris's guys, and it's ranked the number one farm system in the league. That's Scott Harris. He built that. That is all him. That was his scouts that scouted those players. It was him and his scouting group that drafted those players, and those are his guys. He didn't want to give any of them up to support a current core that is not his. He did not draft Torkelson. He did not draft Riley Green. He did not draft the majority of these guys. The majority of these guys are Avila guys. And you can see by Riley Green, he is supposed to be the face of the franchise. He is supposed to be the number 3, number 4 hitter, the heart of lineup of the order hitter, your big time guy. And what did Scott Harris say? Well, I'm going to play it here in a minute, but he talked about owning the strike zone, right? Like he wants guys that are going to go out and get good quality at bats and take a walk when it's there. And then Riley Green comes out last week and says, strikeouts not matter. So I'm going to go ahead and play that real quick here, Brian. But this was an interview that Riley Green had about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But they were asking him about him potentially, I think at the time it was potentially breaking the franchise record for strikeouts. And this was Green's response.
You know, if I'm not putting the ball in play and I'm not, doing what I'm doing, then maybe it's an issue. But, to be honest, I don't care. Obviously I want to, work on it and, get better at it, but it is what it is. And we can't change it now. So, just move ahead and, just try to keep doing what I'm doing.
So here, Green there. Okay. Here's response. I mean, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. But I want to follow that up. Okay. With Scott Harris's original initial press conference. Okay. So this is his coming in. This is the first time he's meeting with Detroit media. He's first time really talking to the fans or anybody at the position that he has as the president of operations for the Detroit Tigers. And this is what he had to say regarding the strike zone.
And the last point that is integral to my vision for this organization is I believe that the strike zone disproportionately influences just about everything you see on the baseball field. It dictates pitch counts. It dictates count leverage. It dictates length of inning, dictates the load you're putting on the pitcher's body, and how many pitchers you're going to have to use throughout a series. It also dictates the quality of contact that you're giving up and how much contact you're giving up, which therefore influences the quality of defense that you can build and execute behind the pitcher. It touches essentially every part of our game, so we're going to start there. We're going to start with the strike zone. We want to dominate the strike zone on both sides of the ball, and we want to acquire, develop, and retain players that can give us a chance to do that.
I mean, and he said that his first initial press conference. Green's comments were just a couple weeks ago. I don't even know what to say, Brian. I mean, he's saying nobody cares about strikeouts. Your boss, the president of the team, flat
Yeah,
out said he is building this team on the concept of owning the strike zone on both sides of the plate.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
It is, and I think we can have a good conversation at one of our next episodes talking about who we think is returning to this Tigers team next year and then long term, because I think it's apparent that Riley Green will not be a long term Tiger. I don't think he retires a Tiger. With what's happened this last 2 months or this entire season, I don't know. There's a guarantee he returns next year. And because again, if he doesn't like Riley Green says, okay, I'm not changing. Basically, like I'm not changing. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, like unfortunately, dude, like you're the guy, and there was talk about sitting you versus lefties, like in a playoff, right? In a playoff race, that's a problem. You can't be here long term, right? And like you're not going to get paid like you think you're going to get paid if you can't hit lefties or put the ball in play, right? And that's just like it'd be different if you're Aaron Judge hitting 55 bombs, but you're striking out a ton and hitting 240, or 250, whatever it is, but you're not, right? And he's his skill set isn't going to be that, and so that's a problem. But it's
Incredibly
like you said,
concerning.
very
Those
concerning.
comments are
But
incredibly
but
concerning.
but it goes back to what we've talked about before. What's the big picture for Scott Harris? Like he's playing the long game, and he has to, right? And so we can debate, and people can debate, and it's a fair argument that, dude, you have the best record at the deadline. Like whether or not you're ahead of where you thought they would be or not, like you got to find a way. Like you got Scooble, like go make a championship run right now, right? Go make it right, and that's a fair argument, but in his defense, I can't think in my lifetime, the Tigers have not had a farm system this good in my
This,
entire life, or
yeah,
even before, like in my
absolutely.
lifetime, not even close. I think maybe the best player ever, like, God, you want to say Cameron Maybin, like Joel Zamaya, Verlander, but like those are a few guys here and there. Like arguably the Tigers have a full roster. And of course there's a lot of variables when they get to the pros, but in theory, they have a full roster of dudes that other major league teams wish they had. And he has to play the long game. I get it. And the other thing that to think about that nobody talks about is like Chris Ilitch has been criticized a lot for not being Mike Ilitch, right? Who's to say that Chris Ilitch didn't say, you know what? I don't really want to acquire any more contracts. I don't want to acquire, like, who knows what Chris
They
Ilitch
did
has
go
said
for
in all this
Bregman, though.
too. They did, and that's a fair point, and that's a fair point. But um, I I question what Chris Ilitch's commitment is still, and to that degree. But is this Tiger team different with Bregman in the lineup? And last offseason, I remember saying that more than anything because talking about these young hitters, because like, and maybe it's not fair to say they're young because there are other 24 and 25-year-olds who are raking that were the number one picks or high draft picks in our dudes, right? But I remember saying like, okay, if you do get that veteran bat where those guys don't feel like they have to carry the load, um, that would help them a lot. But it's crazy though. This time a year ago, those guys were playing well, and like every button Hinch pushed was good, whether it be
Well,
Abanez or Carpenter or whoever.
I would say though, not having Matt Vierling really hurts
Huge.
because he is the veteran, and he felt like he was kind of the leader of the
Hmm.
lineup, at least,
Hmm.
of those hitters, and not having him pretty much the whole year. And then you add in that Parker Meadows has hardly played. He's been playing pretty well these last couple of weeks, but they missed him the majority of the season. And I think those things we go all the way back to the very when spring training first started. Really like a week into spring training. It started with they didn't get Bregman, right? That was a huge blow. And it wasn't just a blow because they needed a right-handed power hitter that played third base. It was the perfect thing for them, right? In terms of the lineup and what they need from a personnel standpoint. But even more than that, I thought, man, they really could use his veteran leadership on this team. And sure enough, I think that has shown itself more than anything is the lack of veteran leadership. Because there definitely is something missing just from that team. And Hinch has never been that type of guy, and that's something we can get on in another show. But he's never been that kind of rah guy, great speeches and flipping tables over when it needs, or any of that stuff. It's just not him. He's very emotionally even keeled, which I think for a 162 game season it's fine, but there's certain times where I think you might need it. And this is definitely a time where you need it, or at least, a player to stand up and say something or do something, or maybe if it's just make a big play at a certain time. Like, nobody is doing that right now. And they very much are in need of some veteran leadership. And I think that's why, really, more than anything, why they tried to get Bregman when they did not get him. And then you combine that with the injuries to Vierling and Meadows, and it's catching up to him now.
I could see that. And who's to say AJ Hinch hasn't done that in the locker room when nobody knows about it? You know what I mean? Like,
I think you would have heard something, but you might be right.
Maybe, like, I do think that can be overrated at times, because like they're adults, man. Like, they're pros. Like, you shouldn't, like, if you need another grown man to tell you to get your shit together, like, you got issues, especially at the major league
I hear
level.
that Green interview though. I hear that Green interview.
Who's to say Jake Rogers didn't pull him aside, or AJ said, like, dude, you can't be saying that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know. I would hope so too. But to your point about the injuries, the Meadows and Vierling, and not signing Bregman, like, maybe that does then reiterate the importance of, well, gosh darn it, that's why you go for it when you can, because there are so many variables that you can't control in sports. And it's the same thing with me thinking with the Lions, back with, not signing Zadarius Smith, or going all in and having your opportunity in the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. And then last year, there's no guarantees Aiden Hutchinson's going to stay healthy all year. There's no guarantees these things happen. So when you get your shot, man, you got to go for it, and this is kind of warranting that mindset of people. When you have the chance, go do it, because you don't know all those variables. You don't know these variables next year. You don't know, like, again, Skubal came out of the game last week with, rib cage tightness, and everybody's thinking, like, oh my gosh, it's over. Like, he's an injury away from, I mean, they might lose out anyway, but he's an injury away from, like, it really being done. And everybody knows it's done, and they know it's done. They know it's done. So, yeah.
So, I mean, we've gone about 27 minutes here just talking about negatives of the Tigers. I do want to end this talk, and then we'll just kind of give our predictions on the Lions-Ravens game. But I just want to pop this up and show everybody kind of where things are at right now. So this is kind of who the Tigers are battling with. Obviously, the Guardians, but also you're looking at the Astros and the Red Sox for a potential wild card if the Guardians were to overtake the Tigers. So you can kind of see the schedules here and where they line up, and what the final week is going to be. And Brian, I mean, so many years we're not talking about this. We're not looking at schedules of other teams. We're not looking even the Tigers schedule in the final week of the season. We're thinking, we're looking ahead to spring training, a few months down the road. But we have it here. It's a true playoff chase. It's a true pennant chase right now. And I'm going to try to enjoy it as much as I can, because, man, these are fun, man. These meaningful, big time, high pressure, edge of your seat games are just so much fun. That's why we watch the game as fans.
Yeah, if we're making, can we make a prediction about what's going to happen with the Tigers? Let's do it.
I'll let you go first.
I think this is all right. Is it kind of the easy way out, taking the easy way out, if I say they're going to be a playoff team? I do. Does that,
yeah.
Okay. I think they'll be a playoff team. I think they're going to hold off Cleveland. I think you don't get swept in Cleveland, and you win 2 or 3 from Boston, and you're the division champs. Again, like, it's because, but here's what I'm banking it on. Like, you want to talk about, finding the mean, coming back to the mean, or water finding its level. Cleveland has been hot, right? And I know they lost yesterday, but, like, are they really going to stay that hot the last 6 games? Meaning, like, win 5 or 6? I don't know, right?
I hope that yesterday was the cool off.
You hope it was. And then a day off today, like, you don't know. Yeah. So I think the Tigers are going to hold them off. I think something's going to happen in the next couple games where, like, something big happens, and then, like, you're right, being a young team, and again, momentum and whatever, but, like, God, they got to feel good about something, right? And I think the Tigers hold them off. I think they're going to win the division. Maybe this is the optimistic fan in me, but I think they're going to hold them off. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow in a couple weeks when we talk again, but I think they're going to hold them off.
Well, I agree with you to some degree, but it's not all optimism. So I think like I said before, I think that these are basically like 2 playoff series, 2 3-game series. I think they're going to take 2 out of 3 in Cleveland, starting with game 1 with Skubal on the mound, and I think they're going to take 2 out of 3 in Boston. But I think they're going to need Skubal to win that final game Sunday in Boston. And I think they win the division. I think they win it with an amazing Skubal start in Boston, in Fenway. But then he's not. Maybe he starts game 3 of a 3-game series in the first round. You might never get to him. Like it screws up your whole rotation if he has to pitch on Sunday. And I think they're going to need him on that Sunday, and it's going to screw up their rotation in that first round of the playoffs. And I think they get knocked out in the first round.
That happened in 2009 when they needed Verlander to pitch the final game of the year to force the 1-game playoff against the Twins, and he wasn't available against the Twins in the 1-game playoff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I mean,
Porcello actually pitched that. I think it's a rookie.
Yeah, he did. He pitched well, but you want your ace. You want your ace. But
or at least have him available. Maybe he can come out of the bullpen for an inning or two. And obviously Verlander wasn't available. And I'd have to look, because I think the playoffs would start on that Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if he pitches Sunday, you're looking at best he pitches the third game on a 3 days rest.
All right. Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope something happens and they don't need that.
But at this point, you
got to get in.
The Tigers have pissed away everything they've had. Like they pissed away all the cushion they had. So at this point, just get in.
You don't have
to get in, and you figure it out after that.
Anything will happen. Yep, anything happens.
Avoid history in having the worst collapse in the history of the game.
It's amazing how exciting. Like a couple weeks ago, I was talking about how I'm not afraid of anybody in the American League, and now we're talking about, good Lord, just get in the playoffs. Like,
God,
mind-boggling.
All right, well, it's going to be an exciting week for the Tigers, no doubt. And we're going to get real quick, so we know kickoff's coming up, so we're going to kind of fast forward through this a little bit. But Lions Ravens tonight. Big Monday Night Football game. Lions are going into Baltimore. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. Brian, what are your thoughts on this game tonight?
So, I mean, what an opportunity with Green Bay obviously isn't, they're 2-1. They lost on a last-second field goal to Cleveland. So, it's still a division the Lions can win. Falling to 1-2 and a game behind Green Bay isn't the end of the world. But how awesome would it be to win a game in Baltimore? I can't even with the Lions run the last couple of years. Has there been a regular season game when you're like, wow, they went in, played an away game and went into a hostile environment against a really good football team and won? I can't think of the last time it's been. Well, Kansas City, but Travis Kelce didn't play though. There was, you know what I mean? There was that didn't, to me, that felt like, okay, this would be, I don't want to say monumental, but man, especially after that week 1 loss when everybody was freaking out about the offensive line and the play calling, and this would be awesome to win this game. But Derrick Henry's still good, Lamar Jackson's still good, John Harbaugh's still good. So if I had to guess, and Jared Goff still doesn't play great on the road. He just hasn't. So it would be great if they could run the ball and establish that to take the ball out of his hands a little bit. But I'm going to say Baltimore 31, Detroit 20.
31-20.
And I hope I'm wrong. I mean, this is Lions played really well last week against the Bears, and it was a home game though. And so if I had to, this is part of that tough stretch when we talked about the Lions schedule this year. This was one of those games. This is the toughest game on the schedule. Toughest game on the schedule. And so it's awesome if they win. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. So I'm very interested to see how they defend Lamar Jackson and Henry, because the last time they played the Ravens, I don't think Henry was there, but it was, a couple of years ago when they went into Baltimore and got just smashed. The game was over by halftime, and they couldn't defend zone read. I mean, they just couldn't. I mean, it was awful, both from a personnel perspective and from a scheme perspective. It was,
which is mind-boggling now because that scheme has been around for a while. You'd think they have somebody to account for the best running threat. But anyway,
some of the things they were doing end and tackle stunts, and the tackle would end up being the edge defender against zone read. He got Lamar Jackson run right by him. I mean, it was just crazy stuff. It was bad. It was bad on all levels. One of those games where you just throw the film out and burn it and be like, hey, let's move on from this, which they did. They ended up having a very good season after that. But it was alarming to watch. And that has been a bugaboo for this team pretty much the entire Dan Campbell regime, is athletic quarterbacks that are involved in the running game of offensive schemes. They cannot defend it. They have not been able to stop it. And it's a new defense coordinator now. Kellen Pritchard takes over for Aaron Glenn, and I'm very interested to see if they're able to do a better job. You're not going to stop it, but can you contain it a little bit to stay? You're not just getting run over and giving up touchdowns and scoring drives every single drive. Like you got to be able to contain it to somewhat and force Lamar Jackson into at least some third and long situations. And then you can get Aiden Hutchinson going and your pass rush going, and if you want to bring blitzes and whatnot, and try to confuse Lamar Jackson. But that's where you beat Baltimore. You find a way to contain their run game and force them in some third and long situations. That's not where they want to be. That's not where any team wants to be, but specifically Baltimore, that seems to be kind of their kryptonite where you can beat them. So it's going to be interesting to see what their defensive game plan is against them. But I'm kind of they got to prove it to me. I haven't, they got to prove it to me. So I still think Baltimore is gonna run all over them. I just do. And but I think the Lions are gonna match it. I think it's gonna be a heck of a shootout and a heck of a football game. But I got Baltimore 41, Detroit 34. Just an absolute shootout, exciting game. But we're still gonna be feeling, even with the Lions being 1-2, I think we're still gonna be feeling pretty good about where they're at, and especially where the offense is at. But we're still going to have a lot of questions about, hey, can you stop the offense with a running quarterback? Because they're going to have to stop it at some point if they're going to make a run. So it's interesting. But you brought up I just want to bring up that one real quick with the Packers losing to the Browns. That's huge. Just absolutely huge, because you're thinking Green Bay is just rolling. They might be unstoppable. You might, you're almost going to have from this point just to match them, and all of a sudden they blow a game against the Browns. You're thinking, oh man, maybe it really was all just about miscommunication and the first game jitters and new coordinators and all that, and they're starting to settle in. So we're gonna find out tonight, Brian. We're kind of where this, I think, a pretty good measuring stick of where the Lions are at.
For sure. Excellent. It should be either way. Lions are on Monday Night Football. And I got to get used to that, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, at the end of the day, hey, Lions are on Monday Night Football tonight, a huge game, probably going to be huge, nationally, obviously nationally televised, but it's probably going to do great ratings. The Lions always do great ratings on national television. And the Tigers are in a pennant chase in the final week of the season. Okay, so it's been a nightmare a little bit, but let's try and enjoy it. So let's try to have fun this week.
Amen. For sure. I agree. Well done.
All right, Brian. Good to see you. Good to talk to you. Congratulations on the new position. And we'll see you all guys next week. This was Inside the Coach's Office. Thank you very much.